Tally-ho, tech-savvy tinkerers and digital darlings. Welcome to this tantalizing tale of Tech Times Daily, where we take a thrilling trip through the tumultuous terrain of technology. I'm your talkative tour guide, Chris Short, and tagging along with me today is the daring data diver, dynamic designer, and devoted devotee of daring deeds, the tenacious Christian Tajeres. Christian, how's it going?
Well, thank you very much for that intro. Tally ho.
Tally-ho. Absolutely,
That's
tally-ho.
digging from the well.
Yeah, well, original. Strictly all original content over here.
Tally ho.
But yeah, no offense, by the way. I wasn't directing that slur at you. But
No, good.
yeah, today actually we have a pretty interesting topic, I think. So this is coming from, of course, the Tech Times website, and it's written by Quincy John. Elon Musk's X faces legal setback. Court dismisses case against anti-hate group. Uh, Elon Musk's social media platform X lost a lawsuit against the Center for Countering Digital Hate after a California federal court dismissed the case. In July of last year, X filed a complaint in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California against the group for publishing stories alleging an increase in hate speech on the social media platform following Musk's takeover. X stated that the Center for Countering the Digital Hate's report hurt its business, prompting sponsors to leave and causing significant financial losses. Judge Charles R. Breyer, however, determined that X's action was an effort to punish the nonprofit organization for using its First Amendment rights and to quiet its critics. So, Christian, do you think this was an attempt to quiet critics or an attempt to lessen financial losses? Or is it a legitimate attempt to, protect the platform of X to where people can basically do and say whatever they want for the most
Yeah.
part?
First, let me tackle about the financial losses thing. Like everything that Elon Musk has done ever since he actually took over actually showed otherwise. Like he never actually showed that he has any intent of making profit from it. Like I don't know if you agree, but I haven't seen any direction where X can be profitable under him. And basically, regarding the entire hate speech thing, like he didn't ban a couple of accounts, by the way. Like I don't know if there was a criteria for unbanning those accounts, whether he was able to filter out the problematic troll accounts that have been doing these quote unquote hate speech things. But that could contribute to it. Like I said, I never actually saw him as looking at it as making a profit of it, more like a statement acquisition that he can actually acquire it, and at least to some degree, show a bit of authority over his. I think his claims that he actually values free speech. That's why he actually bought it. And what
Right.
was the first thing that he actually did was actually fire a bunch of employees.
Mm. Well, yeah, I think, yeah, he's said it multiple times that it's X for him is not about making money. It's about, um, you know, maintaining the freedom of speech, right? And and I get it because I mean, but it's like everything else, right? We go from one extreme to the next. Pre Elon Musk, you couldn't say anything if you leaned a certain direction, right? There was a woman in Canada, or a Canadian woman, um, who simply stated that, I don't know, women are women or something like that. It was something to that effect. And she received a lifetime ban from Twitter. Now, hate speech is subjective, right? Like, I'm sure there's a white man in America that if you call him honky, he gets upset and it's hate speech. Personally, I don't care. You know what I'm saying? So this is, obviously there's different levels. I'm not comparing the word honky to other, slurs. I'm just saying that it is subjective. And when it was leaning, when everything was leaning so far one way, that was the issue. Had it been, you know, perfect example, that lady banned for life. Kathy Griffin posts a picture holding Donald Trump's severed head, no repercussions. How is an image of intense violence against a sitting US president any different than saying girls are girls?
In terms of Kathy Griffin, like we can't actually say there was no repercussions because his her finances, even though she's already on the D list, her finances have been and opportunities have been severely cut. So there
Yeah,
are
but
consequences, but she can recover based from her current stature as a celebrity, right?
I'm talking
She has
about
a nest
on
egg.
I'm talking about on X.
Yeah,
She was
on
not
X.
banned. She was not suspended. No,
No,
and
no.
there's a million examples of you say a little thing that the people at Twitter disagreed with, and you're gone. Babylon B, by the way, a
Yeah.
Christian website, banned for making what everyone knows is satire. It's all satirical.
There's no
Banned.
longer satire anymore in the US, I guess.
That's what Musk I think is trying to bring back, right? Like I can say whatever I want. It's you know the judgment comes as the judgment will come, but no one has a right to shut me up, right? You may take me to jail, but you cannot cover my mouth. You see what I'm saying? Like there's a difference in being able to say it and receiving judgment and not being able to say it at all.
Yeah, the concept of, again, I'm not calling it X. The concept of quit Twitter before, I was supposed to say quitter. Wouldn't that be nice? Well, the concept of Twitter before when it started seems nice in a sense that you could pretty much open yourself to communications before.
Right.
But I guess it was a different time when it was actually developed. Like I can pretty much get where Elon Musk wants to go back to the days when we can pretty much speak our mind and there's not that many people that could judge us, or
Right.
whether we be judged, the consequences is just internally
Mm-hmm.
within one person. But it's a different time now. When you mention the stuff that is being broadcast on Twitter today, it was it was present back then. Like I think there was a stipulation there, or there was a mention that uh there were issues during Jack Dorsey's time that are
Mm-hmm.
still present today, right? But we never actually heard that much about it. Like I think that the degree, the tolerance of people actually shifted towards the intolerable for certain types of speech.
Mm-hmm.
Like we do have to consider the hate speech back in the 2000s and the 2010s and the 2020s are far different and extreme than what we had before when Twitter was actually birthed.
Mm-hmm.
So safeguards regarding how people talk, what their purposes are, wasn't actually present. There was no need for it back then.
Right.
But then, like I always give this example, YouTube was a sacred space for content creators until late night brought its reared its head from it. Like late night shows have become the forefront of YouTube, as well as network television actually is brought to the fold. I can say the same thing with Twitter when it comes to politics. When politicians actually utilized it and brought forth the rhetoric on the platform rather than just the everyman posting about his meal or what he wants for
Mm-hmm.
Christmas, it actually changed. Like suddenly there's an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
The Twitter hate speech thing became a much more violent animal than it was before. So I can understand Elon Musk wanted to go back to those days, like saying
Mm-hmm.
this is not hate speech, and we don't condone hate speech in any form.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
it's
No.
pretty general when you say in any form. Like what does in any form actually mean? Like if you're
Right.
gonna go in any form, we have different variations for it, or we have different ideas. Like my tolerance when it comes to people talking to me or what they can say to me is much different from yours. and I
Right.
guess someone else's. Like what you deem offensive to you might not be offensive to me. I
Right.
could pretty much laugh it off. But I think Elon Musk pretty much wants to go back to those days, and it's pretty hard to do that now. So I can understand the courts actually dismissing this one, and probably to a point understand why some people may see this as Elon Musk probably silencing criticism. Like it's an ironic thing to discuss
It
Twitter
is.
and actually mention silencing criticism when all Twitter is actually a cesspool of criticism for everyone.
Well, I think Elon, he's not going to take a step like this if he doesn't honestly think that the report or whatever was intended to be malicious. You know what I mean? Like when you dive into it,
I, yeah, I've seen the
the
report.
verbiage, you know what I
It's
mean? Like it's 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 not a non-biased report. It's a report that says Elon Musk took over. Now everybody's racist. And in this atmosphere that we're in these days, as soon as you drop the R word, companies run for the hills away from anyone that's even remotely linked to racism, whether it be true or not. Initial first first inkling that maybe they're done.
In all
And
honesty, yeah, I think Elon Musk pretty much couldn't give two F's about Twitter. I think he's more concerned about his other brands being
well,
associated with him with
well,
this work.
I tend to agree with him that Twitter is the town square, and you should be able to. Everyone should be able to participate in town square.
Yeah,
I mean, prisoners have cell phones. You know what I'm saying? Prisoners are on Twitter. Felons are on Twitter. Why can't a political pundit be on Twitter? Why? Because they disagree with the mainstream narrative or because they have maybe an outlandish idea about something that offends people? That's not a reason to remove you from town square.
it's just that people have been so aware over these past 20 years and how
Hyper
quickly
aware.
this works. Like
Hyper aware.
they know how to like everyone suddenly on Twitter becomes a marketer. I don't
Yeah.
understand this fact. Even those who doesn't understand how to market brands, how to build up their portfolio when it comes to their personality, all of a sudden they're experts on Twitter. Like
Right.
it's supposed to mean the stuff to anyone. Like for Elon Musk to actually do this, I pretty much think he's just protecting his other brands from being associated with any accusations of racism or hate speech on X, because right now he's no longer just a Tesla guy. He's no longer just a SpaceX guy. He's also the Twitter or X guy. Like,
Right.
and pretty much, like I said, I don't think he's earning that much from X, especially now that they're gonna be paying content creators. Like, it's pretty much a loss for them. And with all the upcoming lawsuits and settlements he'll be going, because on top of this he has another one right now regarding copyright infringement, which has been going on since Jack Dorsey's time.
Mm,
So Twitter has been a good medium for people to share copyright music videos. Like that's another thing that he needs to take care of. Like how profitable can Twitter be if you have lawsuits left and right?
very true. Very true. Um, but yeah, I want to I want to run a couple questions by you before we shut her down. So yeah, how might this case set like a precedent for the legal boundaries between freedom of speech and the responsibilities of social media platforms to regulate hate speech, right? It's a very thin line, and you know,
Yeah.
digital
For
world is all around us,
Yeah, for you to actually do that, the first thing you have to do is actually you have to define hate speech.
which is very
It's
difficult
actually
or all encompassing, depending on how you look at it.
Twitter, in a sense, is actually global. Like every country has different tolerances, different cultures. Like some countries, whether you have hate speech or not, some words being used that you find offensive might be common in some places. Like the very concept of women, I don't want to go get political here, but
Mhm.
women being second class citizens in the Middle East, that's pretty normal to them, and that's possibly not normal in some countries. Like
Right,
that's another case where it's not particularly hate speech, but it's hate speech adjacent and might trigger a couple of conversations regarding it.
right.
Like, do you suddenly ban a conversation regarding that on Twitter?
I mean, how could you, right? It's not
Right. So if the US is gonna, let's just stick to the US for instance. Like, if the US is gonna be doing a definition of hate speech, is it just gonna be restricted for when it's gonna be used in the US, but not necessarily for when it's used in other
bro.
countries?
I've
There's
seen
so much nuance in this. Like SpaceX can probably travel the galaxy and stretch it up to there.
I've seen some foul ass comments, um, but they're not from Americans,
Right.
and it's just, you know, to some less informed cultures, take, and I'm going to go there. Take the N word, for example, right? If you're not well versed in American history and American culture and the American atmosphere today, or for the last 60 years or more,
Yeah.
um, but you love American cinema, you love
Hip
maybe
hop.
rap music, hip hop. This word has zero negative connotation to it because you've
Yeah.
only ever heard it used in an endearing way or in a way
I
that
don't think there's any. I think that there was a. I don't know if it was Chris Rock who mentioned this regarding hip hop and whether white people could actually use it when singing rap, right? Like a couple of comedians actually use that premise when it comes to the N word. But for me, and people, please forgive me for being ignorant, I still can't understand why Mexicans can actually use the word.
that's an agreement within those two communities. I don't get it either. I guess it's oppression. I really don't get it. I don't know. It's
I know that first for some, I think Ice Cube actually explained that that word to them is they turned it into something that's empowering to them. But in a sense, for me, it screams so much about the darkest part of your history, the
yeah.
memories that it actually brings. Would you want it to be brought up every now and then?
Well, it's one of those
You
things,
know,
man. Like, it's again, it's what we've been talking about. It's
and another
really,
another question for me, I think it coincides. Like I don't even get why Catholics actually wear the cross
bro, I've
and
had this same
wonder
thought.
why Jesus Christ never came back. Like
I've had this I've had this same thought. Like I think there's actually a hip hop song. I can't remember it right now. Um let's see. Where he says,
certain words actually can be used within a certain community if you're among that race. Might be a sign for damage to them. At least once again, people should educate themselves in cultures in other parts of the world, but that shouldn't fall under the responsibility when it comes to hate speech. I shouldn't, me being in my country, I shouldn't be forced to study the Bill of Rights of the US just to know that. And I think this
right,
the same could be said for other countries, like let's say in Japan, that they have a much different culture in Japan when it comes to tolerance. Yeah, I
right, right,
don't
right,
know about the racism in Japan, but some things in the US that Westerners deem to be perverse is actually just the norm there. So
right. Very, very
anything that
true.
the US thinks is misogynistic is deemed to be art there. So
Yeah. All right, let's see.
So
I got a couple more questions.
far away.
Yeah.
Like you see the one in my background, that big kid there. That is one of the most offensive cartoon in history, and people love
What,
that.
what is that?
That's Shin Chan, and those who know.
I don't know. Let's see.
Back during the days when genitalia in cartoons are actually allowed.
All right. So one more question. Let's see. Considering that the court, considering their decision, like, what do you think this means for other social media platforms? Let's say Meta, um, and even Trump's. Trump's is about to go public. Trump Media, Truth Social, or whatever that shit is. It's about to go public. Um, so, what implications might this have for accountability across all social media companies, not just platforms, but companies, and their efforts to combat hate speech and
Yeah, for
misinformation? Because it can't be
for
just Musk. That's not fair.
in terms of Meta, like they better batten down their hatches because their entire model is built on advertising. Unlike
Very true.
Twitter, like I said, I don't even know how Twitter makes money. But when it comes to Meta, everyone knows everything about Twitter is just a giant billboard.
Yeah.
So they will be the ones that will be hurt most by this. Like I remember the time back when it was being built. I don't know if you remember the social network movie where one of the creators is actually fighting for not putting advertising on Meta. What do you think he's
You mean
feeling
the
now?
you mean the old school one or the
Yeah, the
one
old
where
school one.
the Zuckerberg movie with
Yeah.
yeah,
So how do you think he's feeling now that everything's just ads, right?
it's all ads, dude. It's so
It's the
gross.
lifeblood of Facebook, not necessarily traffic. So
Right.
yeah, Face Meta gonna be greatly affected by this. But the only thing that I think would give them less concern is how this is gonna be executed. Like I said, there's a lot of hardships when it comes to actually the definition of what hate is.
Right.
And the funny thing about social media is it doesn't know context.
It's true. A lot gets lost in translation or in context. Yeah, contextually a lot gets lost.
Social media, like every form of text, is pretty much emotionless unless you put an emoji on it. Like, and how sincere is an emoji to you when you actually see one?
Right.
So
I have you heard about digital blackface?
I think I heard it. I can't recall what it is.
It's the most illogical thing. Like if you and I are talking and I send you, let's say I send you a GIF of when Shaq's doing that little thing he does, that GIF, right, where
Yeah.
Shaq is like doing his little dance. Because I'm white, I'm not supposed to be able to send that GIF because it contains a black man. It's digital blackface, which is bananas.
You know the funny thing about the scenario right now and with the X thing, like everything that's happening comes to the definition of hate speech. We've talked a lot of racism over the past 10 years, which were never actually available to us 20 years before that. So this wasn't actually an issue back then. And we are all for ending racism, yet all we do is actually discuss it and
Uh,
remind people of it that it exists. Like it's a weird thing to actually keep talking about it right now when we actually experience a point where it wasn't that big of a deal.
right.
Yet we are making the world a better place right now by talking about it.
Well, I think
It
so. I mean, I think
as a
that's the first
minority,
step.
I find it kind of weird.
Hmm.
Like I wouldn't want people to actually remind me during the times when people are actually calling me flip, which is right. So
Yeah, that was
it's
a thing. When was that?
and a majority of Filipinos actually doesn't even know that's actually derogatory. Like we laugh
Really?
at it. Really,
I
we
don't. I mean, okay, since you're here and I'm ignorant about this, maybe this is a good thing to dive into when we talk about these things, right? Because I've never heard of this term, and other than it sounding kind of similar to Filipino,
it's
is there any other
as
connotation?
far
Like,
as far as terms go, I think it's pretty tame, right? Like if you're gonna
again, it's
if you have a
subjective.
friend that's named Filipino, you could just give him a nickname. Hey, Flip. Like that's it.
I
It's
mean,
nothing. Just to clarify, it's nothing as significant as the N word because the
oh
N
yeah,
word has
there's a
been used to put down people.
right,
Like
there's a
I
long
pretty
history.
much think that the term used for us was pretty much just a joke.
Uh, yeah, I mean,
If
other
anyone can
than the
educate me on that, like please.
I mean, I think other than the issue of referring to someone as something that they're not, you know what I mean? Like me, for example, right? Living in Asia, especially in this area, numerous times a day does somebody say, "Hey Joe," and
Yeah,
I hate it. Joe
yeah.
is nowhere near a racial slur. Kind of
It's
is
not.
the way I feel it is, but
They
it's
call you
just
Joe, I
because
think, because of GI Joe, because of the military being here.
yeah, but nonetheless, that's not my name. And how would I look going around California and every Filipino guy I've seen, I say, "Hey Juan," right? That's you can't do that.
No,
It's right, you can't. So I mean, I don't. It
like
irritates me. It doesn't anger me, but
I
it
think I
does
did
irritate me.
mention that in terms of uh taking offense regarding racial stuff here in the Philippines. We're pretty much, I think, immune to it. But and we kind of think that it's in a culture when we call you that. We kind of feel that it's a term of endearment, like we're acknowledging you actually. But
Oh, I hate it so
there is
much.
no excuse for that if it actually irritates you.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
It just and I tell people when they do it the first time, I will tell them like, I don't like that. That's not my name. My name's Chris. Don't
yeah,
call me
and
that.
once
And
again, we come back to the point like rather than be angry, I would suggest people just educate who they interact with.
yeah,
I think that's the
yeah,
best course of action when it comes to these things. Like
yeah.
hate is a thing that you feel heavily, right? It's a heavy feeling for someone. You work up to it. It's not that instant.
Right. And you can't really blame people. And I don't mean this in an incredibly rude way that it's going to sound, but you can't really blame people for inherent ignorance.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like you just don't know, right? Another example
they mean well,
is
yet they
another
do not
example
mean it actually offensive. Like
is
unless
when
people
I
actually speak up.
right, right.
That's why I said you need to speak up to them, explain them why it's
Yeah,
actually offensive to you, and that's it. That's a
yeah,
conversation. We're not having conversations in Twitter, by the way. We're just having shouting fests using words. That's
right.
basically it.
But like another example is of just not either not caring, not paying attention, or not knowing is when someone will say to me like, my sister is all because here, they like to call us also cano, which as short for Americano, which I don't have a problem with because I am American. Right? That's fine. Call me cano. I don't mind because it's true, right? My name's not Joe, but I am American. And so that, that's kind of like how I feel, right? Like that's okay. But it does make me laugh sometimes. And it is a little annoying maybe when someone says, like, my sister's also married to a kind of from Australia. And it's like, Not gonna. That's not an American. That's an Australian. It's
Not
not the
even the
same.
same continent,
Not even the same. Not even the same hemisphere.
right?
Yeah, but you know, it's but you cannot get angry at something so trivial. Now, again, not comparing this at all to other racial slurs, more prominent racial slurs or anti-Semitism. Um, those are steeped in history, and
Yeah.
majority of the people, majority of people probably have a fairly good idea of, you know, the not only the meaning behind it, but the emotion that comes attached with just, using and hearing those words. So again, we kind of got off topic with Elon,
Yeah, we
but
digressed a bit there,
yeah,
but I want to bring it back to this part of the lawsuits, which I think it originated from. Like, there was a report that before Elon Musk bought Twitter, slurs against Black Americans showed up on social media service an average of 1,282 times, which I think is 1,282 times too many a day. After the billionaire became Twitter's owner, like after Elon Musk actually acquired Twitter, it jumped to 3,876 times a day. Like, that's a significant jump, you would
you know what I
think.
think happened?
What do you
And
think that happened?
I feel like I remember this slightly. This could be a false memory, but I feel like I remember this slightly. Was when Elon Musk took over and said, free speech is back, basically. People started testing the system. Like, really? Like, they were like, oh, I can say bam, 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 bam. I've not been warned. I haven't been shadow banned. I haven't been like they were testing if it was really different. And
But
I mean, why else would it? Racists, and there are racists. There's they're all over the place. There most certainly is racism. But I don't see these people running to Twitter just to throw the N word around.
yeah, real racists are the quiet ones.
Real racism, you a lot of times you don't see.
Yeah. So you just feel them.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
if people are
it's
just pushing the envelope just to say these words, they pretty much have other words to actually use.
and typically if you're racist, it's not directed at one group, it's directed at any group that you're not a part of or that they are not a part of. All right. I don't think there's a backwoods, um, ignorant, racist hillbilly that only dislikes one group of people. It's everyone that's not, you know, the same as them.
I think this is the key part and why I think Musk is actually fighting this lawsuit. Like him being associated with this being the first part of the report, it's actually pretty damning. Like considering like this happened because you took over, kind of bleeds over to the rest of his companies. And if you were an investor, you wouldn't want to be associated with someone with a name alongside this report that actually exists.
Right.
You'd want
But
to at least state your case on in court, at least present evidence that this has been happening before. Like there may be nuances to this case, other nuances on this case why it was actually dismissed. But then again, at the end of the day, I don't think it's about the profit of Twitter that he's more concerned of these days. He has other prospects in his mind, and the way he's been talking in social media and also in mainstream media, I pretty much he want the freedom of speech to be on his side,
right.
right?
I mean it's kind of like the snake eating its tail,
Yeah.
right? It's like Elon Musk says, I want free speech, and then this group says, well, we're saying that this is happening, and then Elon Musk is like, wait, don't say that, right? It's kind of just like it's like, what do you mean? Like you
Can you
can't,
recall the interview that he did? I think it was with the BBC where the reporter mentioned regarding hate speech, and
mm,
he asked the reporter, "Can you give me an example of hate speech?" And the reporter can't give one. Like I think that's
right,
pretty much a case in itself where it's pretty hard to define hate speech. The reporter might have seen one, but it's unsure whether it is to be considered hate speech. Maybe in his own definition it is, but is he afraid that for some, if they heard what his definition of hate speech is, they might just dismiss it? Like, I think that was his concern back then. It's not that he can't actually pinpoint one. It's just that he doesn't know for a fact it's considered hate speech. It's just that he's offended by it.
Right. I mean, that's kind of where all this comes from, right? It's like, who's is it? Which group is offended? Because no matter what you say, if I say smash burgers are better than, regular burgers, there's going to be a group of smash burger people that don't like me.
Yeah, let me give you one thing better. Like the whitening soaps, the whitening lotions. Does it diminish one race?
I mean, I mean, is or are we placing too much emphasis on color and not culture?
Yeah, that's what I feel like. A majority of the failings, like the recent failings here in my country, is because of ads regarding those types of products. When it comes to wanting to be light skinned, like it's not that they hate being dark,
Right. It's just that there's benefits to being lighter.
right? So do we
Eh,
suddenly tax that
Uh,
as
I
hate?
mean,
It's a weird thing. Like I know we're talking about speech here, but there are
mm,
definitions of say of hate that in
yeah,
terms of speech can be brought over to advertising.
absolutely.
These social media platforms are advertisers. Do we
Yeah,
suddenly bring advertising to the fold regarding a possible bill for this? Like
right.
if if it so happens that a bill is passed and becomes unfortunate for X to be brought into it, wouldn't Elon Musk suddenly point in other directions like, hey, these advertisers are also doing the same. These agencies are also promoting these. Why aren't you going after them?
Right.
So
Well, I mean, and we'll finish up. I just wanted to bring back to the front of everyone's mind, mine included, that prior to Musk acquiring Twitter, he was the darling. Everybody wanted the Tesla. He's saving the world. He's doing great. He's the South African savior of the climate and the world. And as soon as he said, "Hey, I want to save the human race. I want to save the climate. I want to make electric cars that are not only desirable but become a part of culture, right? Like AOC, a lot of Democrat politicians driving Teslas, a lot of celebrities driving Teslas. As soon as he went on the offense against censorship and for free speech, that whole thing twisted. Now there's women that say, "Oh, he touched me on his plane," and he's racist. He doesn't understand nuance, and like it's nonstop attacks because when he took over Twitter, he removed a megaphone for that one group of people, an echo chamber, a power, basically a power move from that one side, and they hate him for it. They used to love him. I think it's important to remember why he is attacked as much as he is today.
yeah, and he pretty much with all the businesses that he has, he's pretty much ridden a roller coaster in all his
Yeah,
career. And when he acquired Twitter, he doesn't suddenly decided to take off the safety harness when it comes to these things. Because when it comes to saving the environment, there are only two factors he has to consider: those that believe it's happening and those that do not. When it
right,
comes to Twitter, you're pretty much beholden to every different opinion of every individual in the world. So where will you side? It's impossible to take a side on this. On what do you prefer people to say or not say? So this is an unknown for him, actually, if you think about it. Like I wouldn't criticize people handling social media platforms regarding this because I can also see myself being in this situation, not being able to grasp the limits of what my platform can bring. right? So
Right.
you sometimes just let it fly. Any messaging system, as long as it's private, I think it's fine. But if it's made, imagine your tweets being made public. How much damage can it do to you? Even the safest ones, like
Very true.
right? So
Yeah.
if you could just compare it with social media, I think that's basically it. It's your private messages going out to the world with you not knowing it. But in this case, people are willingly sending out their opinions. That's what's sad about it.
Yeah.
The
It's
amount of the N words being used during his time, I think the magnitude of it, I think is inconsequential, since the 1,800 plus before his time already exists in my
right.
eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a shitty situation, man. And people, the opportunists of the world, and there's a bunch
Well,
of people on
maybe AI
that.
can end racism. We don't know.
I mean, honestly, and I'm not the first to say this, and I don't care to parrot something that I feel is very true. Um, we're going to need, as a human, as a race, as a global society, more specifically, especially in the U.S., where everything is polarized. We need a common enemy, whether it be an alien invasion, um, the rise of AI to destroy, the human race, because the human race is destroying the planet, which will in fact destroy AI, and AI needs to save itself, so humans have to go. Like, until we have this common enemy, um, I don't see things improving. I hope they don't deteriorate more than they already have, but I definitely don't see them improving.
People have a
Something
lot of,
drastic has happened.
I think with all the innovations that we have right now, and this is just my theory on why this is happening with the world, particularly with the Elon Musk thing and the Twitter X thing, particularly Twitter in general, the evolution that it has with how people utilize it, and the amount of on the type of rhetorics they're actually putting on the platform. I think it's because of a generational thing that there are different experiences when it comes to the generations that are actually using it. Like you did say, a common enemy. What's actually missing with this one? Something that can unify everyone, actually, back
Mm,
then. And I'm trying to avoid stating this since it is a bit controversial. I'm not one
this
to
is what.
speak because I'm not one of the country. Because some generations have the Cold War, some
Mm,
generations have the Soviet Union, some generations have World War I, some generations have World War II. Our generation had 9/11,
mm,
had Iraq. What does
yeah.
this generation have? There is so much free time
You
and
hurt
free
my
space
you
in
hurt
their
my
mind.
feelings.
Uh,
That's what they
as in,
that's what they have now. No, I mean that's what they have nowadays. That's the war they fight. Is my
yeah,
feelings
the
are hurt.
only war they can fight actually right now is within themselves.
Yeah, within
So
society.
I'm not for finding a common enemy. I
Of
understand
course.
what you mean regarding it, but
Yeah,
I can understand the amount of free time and free space in everyone's mind right now because they have nothing to think about besides all
right.
the
Life's good.
conveniences that they have right now.
Right. Life is good. You have to create when you have to create
When you
problems.
have enough time to protest,
Oh God, who has time to
that's
protest?
when you know that your smartphone is working for you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But all right, man. Well, thank you for that's a really good point. And that wraps it up. That wraps up today's edition of Tech Times Daily. Tune in tomorrow for more cutting edge updates and insightful discussions on the latest in tech news, tech developments, everything related tech. Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and keep exploring the world of tech. For Christian Taharis, I'm Chris Short, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, that was a bit heavy.
It was a good. That's like an hour, like 45 minutes, maybe, I guess.
This generation needs a common